Hey everyone, this is Chuck Hogan from Your Best Life, and welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. So today we have a special treat for you. And as you know, here at Your Best Life, we're all about enhancing life in faith, family, fitness, and finance, and finding a way to impart and share knowledge from the most amazing experts out in the field. And without further ado, I want to welcome my buddy, my friend, my fellow YBLer, Mr. Dave Asprey. And Dave is affectionately known as the Godfather of biohacking. He has a new book coming out. You won't want to miss this. It's called Smarter, Not Harder. It's the Biohacker's Guide to Getting the Body and Mind You Want. So without further ado, Dave, thank you for being here. I'm so grateful to have you on the show. And I really wanted to ask you, this whole journey of biohacking, why? Like, what started you off as biohacking is the way to go, and I need to know more about me?
Well, I used to weigh 300 pounds. I weigh 200 pounds now. I'm about 8% body fat, and I'm never hungry, and I work out for 15 minutes a week. So something changed. And what happened is I had a career in Silicon Valley. I was very, very early in the internet e-commerce space, and I was a computer hacker. So when I'm 26 years old, I made $6 million at the company that held Google's first servers when it was 2 guys and 2 computers.
Wow.
And I lost it when I was 28. That's one of those things that happens. But I was so tired. I ended up being diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and my brain stopped working. I was in constant pain. And by the time I was 30, they said, you're pre-diabetic, you're at high risk of stroke and heart attack, you have arthritis, and your brain doesn't work. I'm like, oh, I'm old. This sucks. So I decided I had to do something about it. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor couldn't help. He said, maybe you should try to lose weight. Like, I went to the gym 90 minutes a day, 6 days a week for a year and a half straight. Wow. On a low fat, low calorie diet. And I'm still fat. What is going on here? And he didn't believe me. So I fired the doctor, and I didn't see a doctor for 4 years and became an expert in hacking the body using the mindset that I have as a computer hacker. There wasn't a name for it back then. I started learning from my elders, people who were 3 times my age with more energy than me at an anti-aging nonprofit. And soon I became the chairman of it. Wow. So what happened is I had enlightened self-interest. I didn't want to feel like crap anymore. I wanted my brain to work, and I wanted my energy back, and abs were nice too. So I created this movement, and I've traveled around the world to study spiritual practice, even though I'm a computer science guy. And I did that because the stuff that was supposed to work, like beating myself up in the gym, actually didn't work.
Right.
And the reason I wrote my latest book, which will likely be my 5th New York Times bestseller, is because of that 702 hours I spent in the gym trying to lose weight that didn't work. We all believe, Chuck, that it's a moral failing and that we lack willpower. That's why it's not working. That's not how it works, because I burned myself out in the gym and it still didn't work. And I told myself, I'm sitting at dinner. I'm with my friends. They're eating double Western bacon cheeseburgers and fries, and I'm having the chicken salad with no dressing. Oh, and no chicken because of too many calories.
Right.
I exercise more than all my friends combined, and I eat less than all of them, and I weigh as much as all of them combined. Like, okay, not quite, but like, how did that happen? What was going on? I truly thought it was because I wasn't trying hard enough. And I just got to the point, wait a minute, I'm really doing it. And I am stronger than all these people, but something else isn't right. And so I started doing the things that I didn't believe would work because I was curious. And what you do as a hacker is the obvious thing is you try to log in. And if that doesn't work, you find a hole. So I decided I was going to find the holes. How do I get a signal into my body? And as it is, I am now 11 years younger biologically than my chronological age.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And this is in lab tests, the latest and greatest. There's different ways of measuring your age. depending on which test you like, I am somewhere between 5 and 11 years younger than my actual age. And I started out being old when I was young with a history of autoimmunity and all these other problems. So if I can do this, anyone listening to this can do it with less work than me. I am the worst case for something like this.
Well, you bring up so many great points, and oftentimes people feel the failing is in their mindset, and yet they're following best practices. They're out there, they're doing the doings, right? It's like they're lifting the weights, they're counting calories, they're cutting carbs, they're eating a low-fat diet, they are espousing to eating all their veggies, all their greens, they're going completely vegetable-oriented. And what would you say to the person that's like going, yes, but I have a moral dilemma with eating meat? And it's like, okay, I know what I think, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too.
Well, let's talk about this. Along my journey, I have been a vegan, and I've been a raw vegan. And I'd already lost a lot of the weight on a higher fat early version of keto, but I'm always willing to experiment and try things. So I fell into what I call the vegan trap. And I read just a couple of books on it from well-intentioned but misinformed people. And they said, well, there's enzymes in raw food and vegan food, and plant protein is somehow better. It's not. But I said, okay. So I did it really devoutly. I bought all the juicers and blenders and sprouters and big bowls. And I really did. And yeah, you lose weight and you actually get a nice hit of energy for the first 6 weeks, after which point you don't know that it's stealing minerals from your body. It's depleting you. I got to the point where I developed autoimmunity I didn't have before. I cracked 2 teeth because I depleted minerals. And I'm a really well-informed guy. Like I've written New York Times best-selling nutrition books. I'm not a fool here. People say, you didn't do it right. No, I did it right. There's fundamental reasons that the plant-based diet is never the optimal diet for humans. And there are a few people who get away with it reasonably well for a long period of time, but it is a very few people. I know 2 of them. The rest of the people who say they're getting away with it, well, just look in the mirror, brother. You're not getting away with it. And so there's the argument, though. Okay, I want to do it for animals. So I've already done this diet, and I go to Tibet to study meditation with the masters. And I'm at a monastery for 10 days at a meditation retreat. And the rules at a Buddhist monastery are no killing. So you eat a vegetarian, but not vegan, vegetarian diet.
Got it.
And and you can do vegetarian and do all right. It's not ideal, but you can do it. So I go further on into Tibet and I meet a lama, the head monastery guy who I don't know. And I said, you have a yak skin on your prayer pole and you say no killing, you're a hypocrite. Right. And these guys love to argue. So he starts laughing. He goes, one death feeds everyone. And that was the origin of the idea deaths per calorie, which is something I've been talking about for the last 12 years. It's spread around, especially within grass-fed agriculture. Right. And I hate to tell you, vegans, for you to eat your bowl of whatever crunch or your fake burger, there are thousands to tens of thousands of dead animal carcasses behind the tractor, environmental destruction, bunnies, ladybugs, salamanders, butterflies, mice, and a bunch of ugly animals that you don't seem to care that much about. So I will tell you that every bite of grass-fed meat, or hell, every pound of grass-fed meat from a cow is 0.5 animals per year, total deaths, versus thousands in your tofu. There is no animal argument. It is environmentally destructive to eat low quality peasant food and tell yourself you're not killing animals when you're killing more animals than people who are eating high quality nutrition. There's a health argument for the vegan diet that falls flat on its face. And that's because plants can't run away from us. So what they do is they put compounds that stop you from using the protein and stop you from using the minerals in the plants so that we won't overeat them. We will eat plants to stay alive during a famine. Plants are good for us, certain plants anyway, but not all of them.
Sure.
But if you only eat those, you're basically telling your body that there is a famine. And my new book, it's called Smarter, Not Harder, is not about the vegan diet. There's no environmental argument. There is no health argument. There is no animal cruelty argument for the vegan diet. I'm sorry, I've gone down all those. I've been a devout vegan. It doesn't work for any of those. By the way, I do run a 32-acre regenerative farm where we grow plants. And it's funny, where the animals, the sheep and the cows poop, I have really good plants. And where there are no animals, the plants are weak. It's a precious cycle of life, which is how that works.
Nitrogen is important.
Nitrogen is important. So you can look at that and say, all right, well, what am I going to eat? You should eat the things that make your body know the world is abundant, so that your body will change how it behaves in the world. And Smarter Not Harder is there. I have one chapter in there about how plants are stealing minerals, which is why minerals are so important to put back into your body. Yes. What that means is that if you exercise, the exercise will work. But if you exercise with no minerals present, your body can't do what it wants to do. And then it gets stressed. And then you get stressed. Your conscious brain looks for a cause of the stress, and it'll probably blame the person who cut you off in traffic, or your spouse, or your boss. So
it's because everything's biochemical, and that's something that you've espoused for decades. And it's all these emotions, all these feelings, and it's a compounding effect as to what's already within you as well. So if you're not putting in great things and you don't have the nutrition, adrenal fatigue can actually be a real thing from your working out. And it's like, okay, so, I love the harmony of what you're talking about, Dave, because it's not about balance. It's really about harmony, isn't it?
It is about harmony, and it's about recognizing that you are not your body. Your body is really, really fast and really, really stupid. And you, sadly, are very, very slow, but very, very smart. So we like to think we are our body, and that causes a lot of suffering. In Smarter Not Harder, and in the book, I introduce a new concept. It's called the meat operating system. So your body's operating system. And people say, well, yeah, what is that really? How do I know it's real? This is going to sound really weird, but Chuck, when I clap my hands like this, you hear it right away, right?
Yes.
Okay, maybe there's a speed of sound for it to get to you, but then you hear it, right?
Sure.
If we had electrodes from my 40 years of Zen neuroscience company where we do brain upgrades for people, if we had the 40 years of Zen electrodes on there and we measured your brain, after the sound came out of your speaker, it takes 1/3 of a second for your brain to get the first electricity from that sound.
Got it.
What that means is that there is 1/3 of a second lag time between reality and your consciousness. Do you sense that 1/3 of a second?
No.
Neither do I. So who's hiding it from you? How did it get edited out of your reality?
Well, I know the brain has to distort, delete, and generalize information in order to process. Otherwise, you go insane. So there's a filtering process.
That's right. And the other thing is, there's right in the middle of each visual field, there's a circle about the size of a dime that you can't see. That's a blind spot.
Yes.
You don't see that either, right?
No.
So something inside of you, without your knowledge or permission, is editing pieces of reality out. That's what your meat operating system does, which is kind of useful. It also makes sure that you move your ankle at just the right angle. It makes sure that you regulate your body temperature. It keeps the meat alive. But it is a real-time system, and you have a lag time on reality. So there's 1/3 of a second when someone else is in charge of what you do. And it decides what feeling you're going to get. And it even decides what you can see or not see, and what you can hear and not hear. And you can prove this with neuroscience. So Smarter Not Harder is a book about how to hack that system, because it doesn't listen to you very well. You can tap into it. It takes a lot of really weird spiritual practice and breath work and things. That a lot of spiritual practice is actually editing your operating system settings, but that's hard work.
Sure.
What it does listen to, though, it listens to the environment around you.
Okay.
And it gets a signal, and it tries to decide what's happening, and then it adjusts itself, and then it gives you a little bit of information about what it did. So Smarter Not Harder, I'm like, look, there are much better ways to send a signal into your body to make it stronger, faster, smarter, younger. And this book is my revenge. I spent 702 hours in the gym sweating,
Yes.
not getting results. With what I have written in this book, I could have gotten that out of the way in 5 minutes, 3 times a week, and taken all that extra time and done other stuff that would have been beneficial for me. And that's why it was worth writing a book about. It's not a book about exercise, actually. It's a book about controlling your biology so you can show up the way you want in the world.
It really is about a thriving and healthy and vital ideology, isn't it? And being able to get those distinctions where body, mind, and spirit actually become congruent rather than it being a doing process and expecting results.
You nailed it. That's exactly what it's about. And what I find is that this idea of someone else being in charge is a little disturbing. That oh my God, I have this system. But let's take what people ask for when they say they want to be healthy. And even with YBL, we talk about fitness and all, and that's an aspect of health. But if I said, hey Chuck, do you want to be healthy? You'd say yes, right?
Absolutely.
How do you measure that?
That's a great question.
I don't expect an answer.
No, I know it's kind of rhetorical, right? But it's like going, But I actually do have a feeling around this, and I'm going to be specific about my language. It's a lot of people dismiss how people feel. And I go, when I get up and I feel energetic, when I open my eyes or I'm engaging self, and I feel centered and in flow, not forced and not like I'm having to push or press, then I actually feel healthy and vital.
Wow, that is a fantastic answer. What you're describing is effortlessness.
Unconscious confidence. Yes.
Yeah. There's one of the chapters in the book is about removing friction, which is one of the easiest ways to upgrade how you show up in the world, which is, okay, what are the things that are making it effortful? And let's go through and let's remove those from your operating system and from the signals you're putting in. And it's funny, earlier you talked about the vegan diet. Well, if you're getting plant toxins that steal your zinc and copper and iodine, everything doesn't work very well. It's like you're always pushing a rock uphill, but maybe you didn't have to be doing that if you just had the adequate cellular stuff, or it's quite often behaviors you have that you think are healthy that aren't. So about 8 years ago, I opened the world's first biohacking facility in Santa Monica, California, underneath Arnold Schwarzenegger's office. And it's called Upgrade Labs. And I did that because I have $1 million worth of technology that improves how the body works. It lets you get in there and change things, not medical things, but actually just really powerful signaling into the body. And I said, well, others should be able to use this, not just me. So I opened it, and it created an industry now, which is really, really cool. We are franchising this. You can go to ownandupgradelabs.com and you can open one in your city. There's dozens opening as we're talking right now across the US and Canada. So what I learned from having celebrities and just normal people come in through the door is what people want is one of 5 big things. And that's how Smarter, Not Harder, my new book, how it's structured. So by now we've already talked about some health stuff, but here's the 5 things that really matter. Number 1, some people, when they come in, I want strength. I want my muscles, right? Okay. That's one health goal. Another person may come in and say, I want cardiovascular improvements. I don't want to get winded when I go up the stairs or play with my kids or whatever the thing is. So those are not the same goal, and you don't do the same things for them, but they're both in the bucket of health. Another group of people says, I want my brain to work. And this was me in my 20s. Like, good God, I would give anything just to remember stuff reliably and to not just zone out. And so that's actually a very scary feeling. And that's what senile cognitive dementia and pre-Alzheimer's feels like. It's not something I want to do again and not something I will do again. So there's brain function. Another one, though, is they want to be able to manage resilience. They want stress handling. And for the first time ever, people are asking for stress managing or anxiety management more than weight loss. And the final one is they want their energy back or weight loss, because those are the same thing. And so I want my brain, I want my energy, I want my muscles, I want my cardio, and I want to be resilient in the world around me. Different goals and different people. So when people come in the door, I measure them electrically, like clinical grade stuff, and say, oh, who are you today? How's your body doing? And where do you want to go? And then we use AI algorithms to plot a course through the different technologies that work. And in the new book, Smarter, Not Harder is the title. What you do is you go through and you say, okay, what are the goals that matter to me? And then I walk through all the things that we know from the last 20 years that we didn't know before. Because right now, Chuck, you and I, if we didn't have this kind of knowledge, there's two things you do to be more fit. Number one is you run away from tigers. And if you want to be fancy, you get on a treadmill and run in place. That's a big invention. Or you pick up rocks. And if you want to be real fancy, you concentrate the rocks into iron plates and you pick those up. That's exercise, right? Everything we do is a variation of those, but not at Upgrade Labs and not when you read Smarter, Not Harder. And what we're doing is we're recognizing that that dumb operating system in our body, we can fool it. We can trick it. And as an example, for cardiovascular exercise, we all make an intellectual shortcut that says, if we do more of something that's good, it's better. So if running is good, running 10 miles better. Okay, pretty straightforward. It's not that hard to understand. And if something's bad, let's do none of it. But it turns out for biology, well, water is good for you, but you can die from drinking too much water. Right. So the intellectual shortcut isn't accurate, but we kind of pretend like it is. And we do that with exercise. So a typical, just say cardio workout, you go into the gym, you get on a bike or a treadmill, and you warm up a little bit. And now the meat operating system doesn't know what the heck you're doing because it's dumb. It doesn't even understand time. It doesn't know anything. It's a bunch of little bacteria working together to try and figure out what the Petri dish is doing.
Right.
So I was okay. For some reason in the world around us, this guy's kind of moving a little bit, but all right, whatever. So let's give him a little bit more oxygen and hormones and whatever else. But then the first hill comes and you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to really power through it. And your body goes, oh my God, a tiger is hunting me right now. Because clearly, why would this guy be running at full output? Like, why is he pushing so hard? Meanwhile, you're telling yourself to concentrate, look at me, I'm doing good. I did more. Okay. And the body's going, emergency, emergency. Okay. That's interesting because now the body's saying, I am going to be facing tigers. And what's supposed to happen in nature is you get away from the tiger and then you take a nap.
Yes.
Okay. But what happens instead is we go, okay, I made it through that hill. Let me maybe cruise at 50% and then I'll do another hill. What the body thinks is that you didn't get away from the tiger and it's still hunting you.
Right.
So you go through this whole 45-minute spin class with some instructor in spandex yelling at you and playing Britney Spears and sweating all over the place and breathing other people's sweaty air. And at the end of that, your body goes, a tiger's been hunting me for 45 minutes. And then you have a little vegan smoothie and it goes, oh my God, and there's a famine because I got no minerals here and I got no good protein here. And it says, okay, what percentage of my energy should I put into improving myself versus survival? And here's the math. And this is in Smarter, Not Harder. This is why I want you to buy the book and read it because it's worth it just for this one point. If you do an hour of spin class or treadmill 5 days a week for 2 months straight, you'll improve your cardiovascular by 2%. If you do a 20-second workout with no sweat, it takes about 5 minutes to get the full 20 seconds spaced out right. So we'll call it a 5-minute workout with no sweating,
right,
3 times a week over that same period of time, you'll get a 12% improvement. You get 6 times better results. And you spent 15 minutes a week instead of 5 hours a week.
That's remarkable.
The ROI on that is so incredibly stupendous. That's just one of the technologies we're using in Upgrade Labs. Now you could say, Dave, I don't have one in my neighborhood yet, in which case go to ownandupgradelabs.com and open one. Or read the book and I tell you how to use the new principle of that, which is signaling to your body that it's safe to improve.
Yes.
How do you do that? And I tell you how to do it at home. Every single thing in the book, it has a new principle, a new understanding. The free version at home, it's not going to cost you very much version. And then here's what crazy billionaires do. And right. I take all the crazy billionaire stuff and I put it at Upgrade Labs. So you can just go use it a few times a week when you want to as a membership model. But it's okay if you never go to an Upgrade Labs. you have to read the book, because now you know how to manage your operating system so it'll behave itself, and you won't be fat like I used to be, and you won't be in pain like I used to be, and you won't have brain fog like I used to have, and you won't have to spend a meaningful portion of your life in the gym. You'll instead spend it building a company, with your kids, with your spouse, meditating. Oh, and meditating, there's a chapter on that too.
Well, and again, what's so brilliant about all this is that it's a full body experience. And it goes to something that since you and I had conversation in the Maldives together, I've been really spending a lot more time looking at, and that is mitochondrial intelligence. Like,
yes,
this building block, this powerhouse, this engine that's in every cell of your body. And it's like, okay. But something else came to mind too, and actually came to my heart. And that was when we start to look at the neural net of those sensory neurites that are in your heart, those 40,000 cells that actually mimic the intelligence of your brain. And I was like, ooh, how cool would that be to look at the mitochondrial intelligence of those cells? Because they actually work independently, but in continuity with all the other biosensory feedback, stimuli, neural receptors. And I'm like, holy smokes. It's like, it really does kind of give you that continuity. And to your point, you resist is going to persist. And so as people are resisting being in flow in martial arts and in different types of, I'll say arts, even Tai Chi, just the energetic flow, it's amazing to see that these people are gaining flexibility and more malleability in their joints and their connective tissue. And I don't believe it's just because of movement. I actually believe it's because of energetic center and reduced inflammation and natural flow in combination with what you're putting into your body. Because now as you remove stressors, I wish people would understand this, Dave, and that is cancer, dis-ease is caused by stress. And when we put artificial stress, exterior stress, what's the adage you say about an egg? You know, if the force comes from within, it means life. If the force is coming from the exterior to the interior of the egg, it means death.
It's exactly right. It all comes down to how you generate it. And I didn't put much about this in this book because I've written about a variety of topics, and I do my best not to repeat myself. But it all does come down to the mitochondria being a collective consciousness inside your body. And they are little environmental sensor nodes. Each one is an ancient bacteria, and some cells, like in your heart and your brain, have 15,000 ancient bacteria stuck in them. And they're looking around like bacteria, not very smart, going, well, what's going on in the world around here? And then they look at their buddy and go, what do you think's going on over here? And it's called quorum sensing. And they actually vote the same way that actually crypto algorithms work. It's pretty fascinating. But you have so many of these that they're environmental sensors. And as soon as they sense it, they go, okay, now that I have this knowledge, what should I do? They can make electricity, which is what we know they do. They also can make melatonin. They can make testosterone. They can fold proteins. So they're actually manufacturing plants that just look around, what should I do now? And then they make something. And maybe it's inflammation, maybe it's electricity. What you learn when you read Smarter, Not Harder is how to tell that system to do what you want, which is to stop making inflammation unless it's good inflammation. Good inflammation happens after you lift weights. That's what causes you to grow. And you tell it to stop wasting resources, and you tell it to get stronger instead of being stressed. And it's very weird to understand that doing radically less could give you much better results, but it does as long as you get the signal into the body. So for these 5 domains, I tell you how to get the signal in. And for meditation, yes, I have for 20 years now been saying, hurry, meditate faster. Right? And it drives people crazy. You can't do that. Like, that's like having a yoga competition, which actually doesn't work. But what you can do is you can say, all right, what are the technologies, the techniques that work better than sitting in a cave and looking at the wall? Because that's what meditation has been for thousands of years, which is a very sacred practice, because you would do it for 40 years, write down what you noticed, and then give it to the next generation, and they would do it. And we've actually learned a lot about human consciousness from some of these advanced things. And it's very sad when governments or churches go through and burn all of those scrolls every 1,000 years or so, which has been going on for a while. But, we do have a rich history that gets passed down. So there's a sacred nature to that. What we've also learned using science and meditation together is that there are ways to get there faster than we used to. And so in the book, it's like, okay, meditation is great. You should do it. However, meditation with breath work gets you there faster. My assumption is you only have so much time every day. You can meditate, you can exercise, you can do brain training, you can play with your kids. How much time do you want to spend playing with your kids versus the necessary stuff? Sorry, I have stuff to do in the world that matters. And it's not meditating, but I have spent 6 months of my life with electrodes glued to my head doing 40 years of Zen, very advanced brain training, which is the equivalent of many lifetimes of meditation.
Sure.
Just to be really straightforward.
This harmonization of all these modalities and all of these meta programs running together is just remarkable, because what I see in you is mammoth action, manifestation, a ton of brevity, a ton of confidence and self-awareness. And it's come through pushing your body to the limits in many instances, and then pulling back and also understanding that pressure only yields so much results. Like, what happens to a diamond after it's a diamond? It's like, that's the culmination of all this carbon being pressed under high heat and pressure. And I go, that's great. It made it really hard. But that also means it's fragile in some ways too, to impact and to different results based on different environments. So it's not the perfect answer.
You're right. And you also just got to recognize what you're capable of and what are actually not going to happen. So that diamond is still made out of carbon. You can take a diamond and put it into a fire, it'll burn like coal.
Yeah.
Right. And you can shatter a diamond. Right. Absolutely. But it's awfully hard. Right. So you don't necessarily even want to be the diamond. You want to be able to be amorphous and shapeshift. And yeah, I'll be a diamond today. And tomorrow I'll be a blob. Right. and you want to train your body to understand that, because it's easy to say, you know what, you should always be ready for famine because I've been intermittent fasting for 23 and a half hours a day for the past 2 years. That's a stressed body.
Oh.
Right. You can also say, do what I did. You know what? Be ready to be hunted every single day. You're going to do 45 minutes of cardio, 45 minutes of heavy weightlifting, and you never get a break, even if you're tired. Oh, that kind of stuff. No, you can do that for a brief period. What you can do, though, is create a lot of peace and calmness in your body by not sending those emergency signals too often.
Right.
And by doing the restorative techniques. And in Smarter Not Harder, I teach you how to turn on the signal and how to turn off the signal. It turns out what drives your body to change and to do the things you want, even your mind, is how quickly do you turn off a stress signal?
Yes.
And how quickly do you turn it on? It's not how long were you stressed. The longer you're stressed, the worse results you get for most of these things.
Well, that's to your point. I mean, I see people in the gym, and I used to be one of them. I was the guy that was like in there for hours, like, oh, this is my second home. And my wife and I have been working out religiously together, but it's been very different. Our workouts are short. They're very compact. We're very focused, no more than a couple of exercises per body part. And here's what's remarkable. When we stopped doing it every day and we started doing it just 2 to 3 times a week, much faster results. The recovery time, the body fat reduction, everything. And it was a very simple aha, because we're not living in stress that's imposed, where body is being forced into recovery constantly. It's like the natural recuperation now is so much more organic that we're both seeing amazing results much, much faster than ever before. And this is after, 56 years on this planet. It's like, well, wow, this makes a whole lot of sense. And to your point, I'm feeling younger every day. I feel like Benjamin Button, like I'm turning back the hands of time, not advancing them.
That's how you do it. And it's really weird. Some strange things happened to our species in the 70s. One of them is a weird guy who probably had some PTSD, from what we can tell, decided that running was good for him, and wrote Born to Run and created this revolution where everyone would just start running. And it doesn't actually work for health. 80% of people who start running get injured. 50% of people who run every year get injured, or run every day get injured. So you realize it's actually not that good for us. But for him, he was getting endorphins. It's like an opiate thing. And he was finding peace, but it was an extreme behavior. And because of that, we run marathons for health, right?
Right.
The guy who ran the first marathon died from running the marathon. That's what we're celebrating, is something that makes most people die. And look, if you want to run a marathon once to show yourself, to show your operating system that you're in charge, do it. You want to do it every month, just like to look, there's easier ways to suffer. You can just self-flagellate like the monks, just hit yourself with a whip over and over on your back, like they did in the 14th century. Why not? Right? It's just like, it's just intentional pain infliction, but it's also damage infliction.
Yes.
So there are better ways. So in the 70s, we said, well, we should run all the time, which is not something people have done before. And then a bunch of people started trying to do this plant-based vegan thing. And I have traced this back. I've interviewed the daughter of the founder of PETA, where a lot of this came from, People for the Eating of Tasty Animals. Sorry, Ethical Treatment of Animals. I get that backwards. And he was very traumatized by concentration camps in World War II, the personal experience. And he came back and just couldn't tolerate meat. This is an aversion response. It's a mental illness.
Yes.
And his daughter was forced to be a vegan until she was so ill she had to sneak meat. She's been on my podcast. I've interviewed her, and it's a really compelling story where she was so sick she almost died. And many people who go vegan get there, they're just, everything's not working right. They can't figure out why, because they know the vegan diet's healthy. It's not. So what we had is, at the same time, people saying, oh, let's eat less meat, which is what everyone knew made you lose weight and build muscle up until that point. And another guy said, hey, let's run forever. And our whole species, especially, maybe not the whole species, at least all of the North American part of our species and much of Europe, and we've spread that to much of the world, we all got into this situation that said, hey, let's all run a lot, and let's eat not very much, and let's not eat enough protein and fat. And what that is a classical example of our bodies become stressed because we're in a world of constant stress and there isn't enough energy and enough quality food. And it's not how you make yourself show up in a way that you can be proud of with your family. You will be emotionally reactive. And that's why I wrote Smarter Not Harder. We don't have to do this to ourselves. And the last 2 chapters are about the meditation side of things and how do you do that faster, because that's part of it. Once you get your body working right, suddenly you have the energy to do your mind. And this is what happened to me. And then you start realizing, why I keep having these spiritual experiences. What is going on here? So I even write about the spiritual techniques that get you the most bang for the buck, which of course now I pissed off half the spiritual people listening, but that's okay. If I just triggered you, you have to look at what's in your gun, because if you can be triggered, you haven't reached the state of resilience. Literally, if you disagree with what I said, that's fine. If you got angry at what I said, you have a mental thing you need to deal with. And I tell you how to deal with it in the book. So bottom line is, you want equanimity. And this is the highest state that I learned from the monks in Tibet. It starts with empathy. At least you can feel someone else's pain. That's step 1 on the ladder. Yes. Step 2 is compassion, which is where you automatically, without having to think about it, just wish well on others. Okay. I don't have to feel their pain. I just wish them well. Absolutely. And the highest state above that is equanimity, or a state of resilience, where you get to choose your state and you stay in that state no matter what. This is the monk meditating in the middle of a hurricane. Yes. Right. That's where you want to be. I want to do this, and nothing can take me from my path, including governments doing stupid things, including bureaucrats doing stupid things, including your spouse yelling at you, including your kids spilling milk on the floor. You don't lose it ever because you chose not to. Right. That's what we're all wanting.
It's a
That's why I wrote the book.
Yeah. I love, there's so many levels of this. I mean, as far as where it resonates, one of the things that, and this has become systemic in so many environments, and you've spoken so elegantly about this, I'd like to bring up 2 facets. One is essential fatty acids, or essential fats, and how they actually help feed the myelin layers of our brain and all of our, neurosensory motor skills in our body. Because it's so imperative. and for connective tissue and everything else. What do you say to the folks that have just, they have nutritionists that are just pushing them towards low fat diets? And
Oh, are there still nutritionists doing that? Number one, look at your nutritionist and ask them why they're fat.
that's a great question. Are you leading by example?
Yeah, and you have to understand that there are different flavors of nutritionist. The people who most likely to have that title are dietitians.
Yes.
And there are now functional dietitians who are changing the face of the dietitian world. Dietitians are the people who put Taco Bell and Pizza Hut and diet soda at hospitals because they believe all calories do the same thing to you. And it's just not how it works. And I talk about that in the 1 or 2 chapters of the book about nutrition, not where I tell you how you have to eat, but I just tell you, here's the things that are slowing you down or speeding you up. So yeah, those calories in, calories out people, if you look online, it's almost exclusively angry people who were bullied, who grew up to become social media influencers, who will sit there and lie to themselves and to you and say, a diet soda and a Snickers bar cancel each other's out. That's actually a pretty good snack because it only had this number of calories. And like everybody knows that this isn't true. And
Right.
People who try it find out it doesn't work. And it's almost a willful blindness, but it always comes with shaming others who point out that it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't
Right.
work because you're not trying hard enough. Okay, this is why I worked out so much and I ate nothing for 18 months. And what I did was actually harmful to my biology. My thyroid stopped working very well. I got Hashimoto's. I had lots of other things that came up because I believe that. So the reality is very different from what those nutritionists tell you. And if anyone says to you, well, you just have to work out more and eat less, it's a fantasy. And here's one example. In the animal farming industry, the big industrial meat producers have found out that you can take a little waxy pellet, a pharmaceutical, and you put it in the ear of a cow. And it melts into the membrane in the ear and it enters the system of the body. It's a fat-soluble toxin that's made by toxic mold, actually. Kind of like penicillin, but it's not an antibiotic. It's a synthetic estrogen. And when they give that to the cow, are you ready? The cow gets fat on 30% less calories.
Wow.
Now, if a drug can make you get fat on 30% less calories, I'm pretty sure the calories in, calories out just got sunk to the bottom of the ocean.
Sure.
So if a nutritionist says that to you, they do not live in reality. They literally, if they don't look at your hormones,
right,
it's not about calories in, calories out. And on top of that, do you know how many calories you spent breathing right now?
Oh.
How many calories did you spend keeping your body warm compared to the air temperature? No, I don't know that either. Nobody knows that unless you're locked in a calorie chamber. Yet these buffoons will tell you have to work out on a treadmill until it says 2,000 calories, even though 50% of your calories aren't measurable by movement.
Right.
So this is, it's actually so laughably simplistic and wrong that the people who benefit the most from this are 2 industries. Are you ready? One of them is big food because it allows them to sell you corn syrup as if it's the same as grass-fed steak or eggs. It is not. The second group is what I'm going to call big exercise. In the US alone, there's $400 million a year of ghost gym memberships.
Yes.
People who pay but never go. And there's a reason for that. And I actually explain the reason in Smarter, Not Harder. And I will tell you, you're listening to this, it's not you and it's not your fault. And there's nothing wrong with you. That meat operating system in your body, it is very heavily motivated to make sure you don't die from a lack of energy. Yes. So it tells you to eat all the Ben and Jerry's, and it tells you to lay on the couch instead of moving. And since it can control how things in the world feel, it makes energy savings feel really good. So you lay on the couch because it feels better than it actually is. And it makes going to the gym look much less attractive than it really is. And then you weigh those 2 feelings and you toss that math up against your willpower, which, by the way, it's also powering your willpower, your operating system. So if you have enough energy and you catch yourself and you go, it's not true that the couch is more attractive. The gym is logically more attractive But from an emotional perspective, the gym is not more attractive. This is your body trying to convince you to do what it wants, which is don't ever move and eat everything in case there's a famine coming, in case you have to run for 2 hours to get away from the tiger. Make sure that you can do that. So it's manipulating you. And so you buy the gym membership with your rational, slow brain, and then your really fast operating system says the gym is really unattractive. And of course you're going to believe that because it's part of how you sense reality. So the gym has this like repellent field around it that you feel, but you can't see. And then here's the worst thing. We get guilt and shame because we tell ourselves we're lazy, right? Because I should want this. No, your body does not want that. And that's healthy and normal. What your body is lazy, which is awesome. Because number one, that doesn't mean you're lazy, but all human progress, Chuck, you know, you and I are entrepreneurs. We hang out at YBL with a bunch of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are the laziest people on the planet. We saw a problem and it was too much work. So we created a business to solve the problem. Every human innovation has been driven by laziness.
Right.
You know, I'm tired of pushing the plow. I think I'll build a tractor. And then we just keep going from there. So laziness in your body is a sacred and important part of being human. It drives us to do better.
Absolutely.
And it's that same signal that tells you not to go to the gym. And it's the same signal that told me to write Smarter, Not Harder. So you don't have to go to the gym because you probably have 5 minutes. And maybe the biggest hack in the book is what I call the laziness principle. Understanding it's not you, it's your body. But how do you motivate the body? Well, okay, the body is easy to manipulate because it's dumb. It's like stealing candy from a baby. So one of the businesses that has figured out how to hack that part of you is the marketing industry. You ever maybe have your wife come back from a shopping trip and say, I saved $200 on this handbag?
Right.
How many times did she say she spent $500 on the handbag? Never, right?
Never.
Why did the $200 savings look bigger than it was?
Because they're getting a bargain or the perception of savings. Yeah.
It's the operating system going, I saved energy. Yay. And so it feels better. Like, so we know coupons work because we're dumb enough because coupons feel bigger than they are, right? Because the feelings come before the thoughts. Well, what you do when it's time to go do your 5-minute cardio instead of your 1 hour cardio is instead of saying, I'm going to go do 5 minutes of hard stuff. Okay. You tell your operating system, I'm going to go save 55 minutes. I'm getting a big coupon. I'm saving 55 minutes. And then suddenly it's not that hard and you're motivated because you hacked your laziness principle.
You know, it's interesting. There's a principle in stretching and people go, oh, I'm going to go ahead and stretch out this muscle. And I go, well, if you actually tell this muscle, my deltoids to my tricep to my forearm, that I'm going to go ahead and purposefully, I'm going to actually back that movement and stretch, you'll go 35 to 40% further in your stretch because there's no resistance.
Wow.
There's an automatic resistance caliper that's built in. But to your point, if we actually empower it, i.e. the psychology of I'm getting a deal, this is good for me, I feel better. It's like some people can talk themselves into anything. But I know people that are in so much the camp that you just mentioned that they go, I'm exercising self-care when I'm laying on the sofa. They go, I'm taking me time. And I go, that's such a brilliant way to look at this too, is that they acknowledge that they're edifying their body. They're listening.
Yep. In fact, I remember one time years ago, before it was fashionable, I had pneumonia. And I'm just talking about the last couple of years when a lot of people got respiratory stuff. And I was really tired afterwards. And so I said, I need to recover. And it actually really pissed off my wife at the time. She said, why aren't you doing stuff? And I'm like, I'm recovering. And I'd like lay in bed and watch 3 Netflixes in a row because I was letting my physical tissues recover. And I didn't need to get up and traipse around the house and do stuff. Right. Wow. And, we talked about it and everything was fine. But sometimes recovery is more important than pushing. And for people who are likely to be watching your show or people who are entrepreneurs like me, or people who are just really driven, we're the ones who have the hardest time recovering, which means we get less results because we don't go up and then back down. We just go up and stay up until we hit a wall. And I say this.
At that point, you're forced to come back down.
You are forced to come back down. And at this point, I've I've built $100 million a year company from scratch. I have 8 companies in my portfolio, New York Times bestsellers. My podcast has hundreds of millions of downloads called The Human Upgrade. And I still think I'm the laziest person on the planet. Not that I'm driven to that, not that I'm shamed by that anymore. It's just because I was like, I got to build systems to do this stuff because I want to do these things, but I'm too lazy to do them. So I hire people to help me. Yeah. And so I just embrace and adore the lazy parts of my body because that's what lets me do good stuff in the world. And I would suggest if you're watching this, do the same thing. Admit that you're lazy and there's nothing wrong with it. And the fact that your school teachers or your parents or your church or your scout leader, whatever the heck, whoever it was told you, how dare you be lazy? Don't be lazy. No, being lazy is actually part of having a body. And what you do is you harness that to get yourself to do things that work better than anything else on the world.
Yeah.
So the flip side of being lazy is wanting the most efficient, effective things on the planet. And that's power.
That's remarkable, David. And with that, this has been remarkable, man. I mean, with you, I could riff forever. I could. There's so much information and knowledge. Get the book, y'all. Go out, get the book. It's on Amazon. You can order it direct.
Smarter, not harder.
Smarter, not harder. Dave, thank you for your time. I know we're at the top of our time for this session of our show. I just want to remind everyone that the show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out for all news and programming, Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Dave, thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Chuck.